Over the years, I've played a lot of games, some good and some not so good. A handful are unforgettable. Yet there are still fewer titles that belong to a special collection of games that continue to exert their influence on me to this day. In this series of videos, I'll be taking a journey of rediscovery, exploring what makes each of them so meaningful to me. But this time around, I'll have company. You. The sci-fi interactive fiction adventure game, In Other Waters, was released in 2020 by London-based developer Jump Over the Age. It explores a variety of topics, including the effects of humanity on the environment, corporate influence on scientific discovery, and how the unlikeliest of partnerships can provide a beacon of hope even in the bleakest of circumstances. Set on the fictional planet Gliesa 667cc, which I will call Gliesa from here on, the game tells the story of Ellery Voss, a scientist working for an interplanetary mining corporation named Baikal. Drawn to Gliesa by a strange message from her old friend Mine no Mura, Ellery arrives to find her friend missing and an aquatic base of operations deserted as it floats on the open ocean. If she wants to find her friend, she must enter the alien waters that surround her. Pressing forward, Ellery picks up the only dive suit she can find and, well, I'm still thinking about what happens next. Welcome to Still on My Mind, Episode 1, In Other Waters. Let's jump in. Right off the bat, In Other Waters shakes up your expectations. Rather than playing as Ellery herself, the game casts you as the AI in charge of Ellery's dive suit. Once she becomes aware of your presence, it dawns on both the player and Ellery just how helpless she would be without you. A system malfunction has left you in control over vital life support functions, as well as movement, diving depth, resource gathering, and data analysis tools. While Ellery can inform you as to what she wants to do and where she wants to go, the final decision is yours to make. In short, if Ellery merely wants to survive, let alone uncover the secrets that lay beneath the waves, she has no choice but to put her trust in your abilities as you both go forth to explore the vast ocean environment of Gliesa. I'm still impressed with how quickly In Other Waters manages to establish an emotional connection between me as the AI and Ellery. I think the primary reason for this is that it inverts the long-standing companion systems employed in other games. By nurturing the companion character through stats enhancements and upgrades, such mechanics in games serve to give the player an emotional connection to a unique NPC that can help the player along in their objectives. At least, that seems to be the theory. I have to admit that I've never been particularly fond of most companion systems in games, and my emotional connection to any NPC has always been mild at best. In many cases, NPC companions are simply disposable. But In Other Waters gives you a crucial role with the would-be main character of the game helpless without your assistance. It is that inversion of roles and element of intense dependence that I think creates such a powerful spark in the relationship between the player and Ellery Voss. I found myself wanting to help her in her goals, wanting to carry out the tasks that she needed help with, precisely because I knew that she was depending on me. I didn't want to let Ellery down, not when the success or failure of her mission was completely in my hands, forging a unique bond between us that falls flat in other games. And it manages to do all this despite its 2D visuals. In Other Waters forgoes a 3D perspective completely in favor of a 2D user interface that is meant to represent the information available to the AI via the suit's sensors. The simple geometric buttons and icons on screen felt both alien and oddly reassuring as the opening moments of the game introduced me to both my in-game alter ego and to Ellery. Even the 2D topographic map used for navigation is executed remarkably well, where points of interest are marked by clickable triangles and circles. You and Ellery are represented by a small yellow dot in the center of the screen, while other shapes of various hues indicate different structures, both natural and man-made, in a way that is immediately easy to understand. The marine-inspired color palette of greens, blues, and yellows is quite futuristic, like the control center of some kind of spaceship, and they give you access to all the necessary information and controls to help Ellery achieve her goals, and even communicate with her. While minimalist interfaces are nothing new, In Other Waters stands out to me for the thoughtfulness of its UI design that evokes a sense of calm even when the tension rises. Adding to the otherworldly atmosphere is the generally down-tempo soundtrack by Amos Roddy. From warbling synth drones and echoing chimes to soft melodic passages and haunting repetitive tones, your explorations are accompanied by an expansive palette of sonic textures that are often appropriately enough evocative of the cosmos. While typically in keeping with the overall calming, almost soothing aesthetic In Other Waters seeks to impart on the player, there are a few tracks that hint at a darker undertone for those moments in the game where the situation calls for it. Impressively, the album stands on its own as a perfect example of the ambient genre, and I can imagine listening to it outside of the game is an equally calming experience. In Other Waters' sound design is equally impressive and greatly heightens immersion in the oceanic world of Glisa. The lapping of waves, squeaks and squawks of creatures, and the intrusive thrumming of machinery all combine to create a soundscape that brings the world to life. Sound effects are likewise highly engaging, with its clicks and blips and other sounds indicating various actions, activities, and feedback in the user interface. I was constantly amazed at how real and alive the world seemed, and this is in large part to the sounds that are everywhere in the game. A true testament to the ability of the sound design to, in many ways, carry the same information that visuals would in other games. At various times, Ellery will speak to you, providing commentary on the present situation, descriptions of the environment, or even sharing personal musings. Responding to Ellery is generally limited to two choices, effectively yes or no, but this simple response system manages to remain engaging due to the richly detailed and lively writing style. Any good piece of interactive fiction rises or falls by the strength of its prose, and In Other Waters has great writing tailored just right for a game where your imagination is key, gaining a mental picture of things that otherwise appear as lines and icons on screen. Interacting with Ellery allowed me to get a sense of who she was and her history as a character. She becomes a fully fleshed out character with hopes and dreams and fears, strengthening the emotional connection between player and character. I often care more about the plot at large, rather than any character in particular, but the need to look after Ellery, and sometimes go against her wishes as her AI partner, invested me in seeing her story through, precisely because I was part of her story. Discovering more about the world of In Other Waters, and the history of Glisa and what perils lay ahead, bring Jump Over the Ages' remarkable world-building skills into sharp focus. Ellery's role as your eyes and ears on Glisa makes for a surprisingly fascinating trip through the marine biome. As a scientist, she gives you detailed descriptions of flora and fauna, but her emotions in response to the alien beauty of the planet come through as well, imbuing the game with a sense of discovery that is similar to reading a good book. The effectiveness of Jump Over the Ages script is perhaps best illustrated when you find yourselves among a vast underwater forest of glowing bioelectric seaweed. The hauntingly beautiful descriptions of the scene that stretches out before you both, coupled with the danger of swimming through electrified tendrils if you stray too far off course, was a collaboration between her words written on the screen and my imagination, and evoked genuine feelings of awe and fear that I won't soon forget. As the game progresses, the history of the planet, the ultimate fate of Mine no Mura, and the role that the Baikal Corporation plays on Glisa is gradually revealed. At one point, you encounter an undersea base station operated by the company, and although there is nothing outright frightening about it, I was impressed by how the unlikely combination of topographic map, atmospheric sound design, and narrative detail made exploring the huge structure tense and unsettling. Exploring the wonders of Glisa is a simultaneously calming yet captivating affair. Navigating to points of interest, whether biological or man-made, allows you to learn more about them. Using the suit's onboard sample collection equipment, you can gather various kinds of debris, such as seeds, shell fragments, or tissue samples, which can then be analyzed in order to understand more about the organisms you encounter. In addition, the suit can use samples with the proper elemental makeup to replenish various consumables, such as oxygen and power. As well as fulfilling mission objectives, gathering information about the various flora and fauna featured in the game unlocks entries in Ellery's notebook, which provides the player with more information about the life form in question. Of any aspect of In Other Waters, this was the gameplay element that I thought was most traditionally video gamey, dropped into what is ultimately a very non-traditional narrative-focused game. However, it reinforced the idea that Ellery was actually studying the planet and its resources, and prevented the game from becoming something of a walking, or is that swimming, simulator. Not that I have anything against walking simulator games, but it was nice to have gameplay suited so well to the premise. If you gain enough understanding about a life form, you unlock a sketch of it, which as far as I can tell is actual concept art that went into the making of the game. This was a double-edged feature in my experience, however. At times my mental image of a certain creature was so off the mark that it was disappointing to see what it was actually supposed to look like, an effect somewhat similar to being put off by the movie depiction of characters that you know by heart from a book. Sometimes, however, it was interesting to see the more bizarre creatures illustrated to get a better understanding of what they were supposed to look like. When the credits finally rolled, I had spent 10 hours or so with Ellery exploring the world of Glisa, and what ultimately keeps the game on my mind is just how much the experience tugged at my soul. I enjoyed getting to know this alien world alongside Ellery, and unlocking all of its secrets. And I mean that literally. By the end, I had explored every nook and cranny of In Other Waters, unlocked all of the notebook entries and illustrations, and had discovered all that there was to see regarding Baikal and its role on Glisa. I'm not typically a completionist, but I couldn't help but be mesmerized, intrigued enough to want to go the extra mile and see everything there was to see. In the end, there was nothing left to do on Glisa 667cc, even though I would have loved to spend more time there. I felt a sense of longing, an emotion that I generally don't have when a game is over. Sure, I might reflect on how fun it was or even how meaningful, but my time with In Other Waters was the first time I ever felt that in some sense I was saying farewell to the game. That for as much as I had gained, I had also lost something that I didn't know I valued. A reason to return. A traditional review might call this limited replay value, and I suppose that's true. I certainly haven't replayed the game since finishing it the first time around, aside from gathering a few minutes of gameplay footage for this retrospective. At least, I haven't replayed it yet. But rather than consider this limited replay value a mark against the game, I want to note how unusual it is that I finish a game and wish that there had been more to do. In Other Waters is that game for me, a title that I long for more to see and do in its briny, aqua-hued depths. People often say of things they enjoy that they wish they could go back and experience it for the first time all over again. For me, In Other Waters is one of those experiences, and that's why it's still on my mind. Wherever you are right now, thank you for joining me on this journey of rediscovery as I revisit games that are still on my mind, sometimes years later. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, please leave a comment down below, consider liking and subscribing, and hit the bell to be notified when another one goes live. I hope to see you again next time. Take care.